Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, he is the head coach of the Sandpipers of Nevada, based in Las Vegas, the club team that just put three women onto the 2021 Olympic team. He is joining us from Hawaii, where he is taking part in the 2021 Olympic training camp. Today, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Ron Aitken.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Ron. I'm super stoked to talk to you for a while and pick your brain about all kinds of things, but we will start with the here and now, which for you is in Hawaii. You got to go to the 2021 Olympic training camp to help your girls get ready and to help everyone get ready, really. Can you take me through that experience so far? We talked a little bit, and you said it's been a whole new experience and a whole new learning process for you.
It definitely is. As far as a coach and being at a camp at this level with all these, super talented athletes, and everyone has a way that they do things. It's like Chase Kalish is doing his stuff, and then you've got Simone Emanuel doing hers, and Kayla Decky doing what she's doing, and then as a coach, where you just always are assuming they're doing certain things, and until you actually see them training and see the type of training they're doing, and then you're trying to figure out how to, get your athletes in and try to be part of the team, and everybody try to come together and train together and make those workouts work with everyone. It's a very interesting process, and it's just you learn a lot about how different everyone is. And for me, I've got my three athletes, and we're so used to doing. They all pretty much do the same thing together. Even though Bella Sims is swimming the 800 free relay and she's swimming a 200 free, she's still training and doing the same workouts that Erica Sullivan's doing, and then Katie Grimes is doing the 800 free, but she's still doing the same thing. And then you just look at the variety across, 50 athletes, and you're like, wow, how do we fit all of this in and make it work? But we've been able to do it. I know my goal was to kind of keep them doing what they normally do, so they can feel, normalized and still doing what got them there. It's like, their training got them to the Olympic team, and we don't want to change too much of that just because all of a sudden you feel like you have to do what Katie Ledecky's doing, or you feel like you have to do what the other teammates are doing to be part of the team, because you just don't want to give up your normal routine to make it there. So you don't want to change anything, and that's been the camp mantra, basically, is all the coaches are trying to reassure everyone, don't change what you did at home, continue to do what you're doing at home to improve on it and become better at the games. And so everybody's been kind of doing that, but we also want to have the team atmosphere and get them in there with the other kids, and that's when they're the most happiest, is when they're able to train with everyone in the team. So we're doing the best we can to make sure that happens too. But it's working out really well. I love being on deck with all these coaches. I think it's a great experience for anyone in my position to be able to, really get to know these coaches and what they've been doing and what they've learned, because they're veterans out here, and I have to look at it like that. It's like, they got some serious talent they've worked with over the years, and seeing how they're handling and managing everybody. And it's very similar to what we go through at home, on our club teams. It's just being like, wow, that happens here too. So it's like, okay, it's not just club kids. It's it's everyone. The way they're acting in the pool and how they get tired and their responses from one hard practice to the next and things like that. So it's been good.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to ask, you mentioned that Bella, Erica, and Katie are doing similar practices or the same practices. Do they also practice with others? Do they do the same workouts as other teammates on some days or all days?
The Olympic teammates you're referring to?
Yes. Yeah.
I've been able to break them up differently. Like I had Erica go with some of the open water crew, and then I've had Bella go in with Bob a few times, and that was good. And Katie's gone in with Bob a few times, and then we did a workout with Greg Meehan, and those are all good experiences for them. Kind of get in there with those girls. So we've moved them around to different coaches. Bella and Katie really haven't separated too much. I don't know if that's just because they didn't want to separate from each other. But ideally, you want to kind of get each one of them into a different group at a different time, and that's what we're kind of working on too right now. Yeah.
How much autonomy do they have in terms of them picking the workout versus you being their coach and being there, you saying, okay, this is what you're going to do today?
I'm mainly directing that conversation as like, hey, this is what's going on at Nesty's practice, and this is what's going on with the open water crew, and I think this is a good fit for you today. Let's go over here and let's join this group and see how that goes with you. I've been in a position with them still at their age, they tend to pick the wrong things. So it's usually when you leave it up to them, you're like, oh, hey, what do you think about this? Like, no, not a good idea. Go over here. So it's like they're making the decision based on like, oh, I want to be them. They're cool. And it's like, it's the workout that you're looking for. It's not this, it's like, I want to go play with them today. It's like, okay, let's go about it. So I'm trying to direct them as far as this is what's good for you. And it's a good practice, and it kind of checks all the boxes and what you need to do for the next day. So I've kind of like other junior teams and national open water camps and stuff like that. I've kind of seen that where I've given them those choices, and it just really hasn't been the right choice. It's usually the one that's not beneficial for them. So I'm trying to, at least in this setting, want to guide them the right way. The other ones, you can kind of take a little risk and say, hey, what'd you think about that? Like, I don't think at this point, trying to get them to the Olympic Games and still get faster, it is kind of like, I got to kind of help that process a little bit, not let them make a mistake. So.
Yeah, sure thing. Have you seen anything from them in workout that has maybe surprised you a little bit over this last week and a half or so?
Not a surprise. Well, actually, yeah. So we did a 1500 for time, and it was kind of interesting because we had it was Friday last week, Friday or Thursday. It was it was Saturday. It was Saturday afternoon because no one else doubled on Saturday but us. We're the only ones that went to the pool to practice, and the whole team really kind of knew that they were going to go 1500 for time that night. And a few of the coaches came and helped out, but they all went lifetime best personal practice times in that setting. All three of them. Bella, and all three of them were under the Olympic trials cut. Yeah, in practice from a push, and they weren't in tech suits. They were in regular practice suits, and we had done. And this is where people are like, well, why is Ron doing so much? But they went 70,000 yards that week, and it was at the end of the week of 70,000 yards, and they all still hit their personal best practice times. It was amazing because you had Bella went like a 16:44. Katie went a 16:38, and Erica went a 16:22. And it was just, they were just like clockwork. Each their splits were right on. They were just moving. They didn't have any kind of fade or drop off. I sent them off staggered. I had Bella was 20 seconds ahead of Katie, and then Katie was 20 seconds ahead of Erica. And so Erica had to chase Katie. Katie had to chase Bella, and it just kind of like worked its way all the way through. And they just were. It was a happy night for everybody. They were totally excited to see that they were still able to do that even after the trials. And then, after a workload that we put in last week, and then of course they're finishing it up a little bit this week, yesterday was our last heavy day, and now they're kind of going in and getting ready to like sharpen their toolbox, going into Tokyo and take a little bit of that workload off and start swimming a little bit faster. But they were pretty happy with themselves. It was good.
So I have to ask, why 70K and finish that with a mile at the end of the
right.
week?
So it's some of the things that we do, like the program will rotate a mile for time or an 800 for time. And that'll go like a 6 weeks would probably be the earliest I see it again, or 8 weeks at the longest, depending upon breaks and like swim meets or something like that. So it's always just little benchmarks along the way to see if we're still getting better. The 70K is something that we've been testing from one meet to the next over the last 3 years, especially with Erica. She would go to a meet in December, and then she would see how fast she can swim in January. And we kind of had that drop, that taper into December, and then have to pick it back up and still swim just as fast or faster going into January. And so it's about 10 to 20% below their max from what they did at their peak season. And that seems to work with, like, Bob and Michael did about 30%. He kind of played around 20% earlier in Michael's career when he was 15, 16 years old. And then that 20 to 30% drop below your max seems to be what's able to get them that bounce they need going into the next one. That's 4 to 5 weeks apart. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. But the end of the week 1500 is just the timing and something that they can compare to a past time that they've done it and see improvements without having to go to a swim meet. It could have been a 400 free. It could have been something else. I think we're going to suit up Saturday morning for a 400 freestyle for time, and I think they'll do 2 of them. They'll go 4 ones and a 400 free for time, and they'll just, it'll be their best times of the season as well, because they've never suited up for practice 400 free. So it'll be another confidence boost of, like, this is where I am. And just give them the energy that they need and confidence they need to go in and still just rip a really good time. So,
well, that's exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah,
no kidding.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I'm trying to visualize getting in 70K in a week, and obviously it's a training camp, so that is kind of the focus. But what is that practice breakdown wise? What did that look like last week?
It was a little tough to get started because our first practice while we were here, the whole team kind of practiced together on Monday, but normally we come in on a Monday and we'll knock out about 8,000 of that in the first practice. And so I had 10 practices throughout the week. I got 10 this week. The average is right around 7,200 meters to actually 7,200 yards to a little bit over 6,500 meters per practice. And if I can average about 1,000 more earlier in the week on each one of those, averaging an 8K practice or 7,500, I'll be able to chip away at the rest of the week, and then those rest of the week practices start to come down to like low 6,000 yard practices, 6,000 meter practices, and it works out to be 70K. When you can get in, a couple big ones, and then you can kind of bring down the rest of them, it makes it very manageable. So, when you swim in a freestyle set that's 4,000 yards long or 3,000 yards long, it's and they're doing what they're supposed to. It's not garbage yardage. They're really hitting their paces all the way through. It makes it doable, and able to get all that in 10 practices was good.
So I think we're going to get to this a little earlier than I had planned, but that's okay. So you mentioned, you don't want it to be garbage yardage, and I'm sitting over here. I did 1,500 at Masters this morning, and I'm like, holy Moses, 7,000 for 10 practices. But you say they're not doing garbage yardage; they're hitting their paces as they're supposed to. So on any given on any of those practices, I'm sure there's a different emphasis on each one. But what are you looking for in a main set, in a freestyle main set that's 4,000 meters or yards?
One is you get, like, I would think there's like three different aspects that you're looking for, but it's not the same one each time. So I was having a conversation with one of the coaches yesterday, and he's like, why are you doing short rest today? Because we went 4100s yesterday morning on short rest, but we had kind of throughout the season had done 2100s all the way up to 60 and then down to 20 going into trials, and they all kind of pick their send-offs and it'd be short rest. So on that particular aspect, I'm just kind of looking at the basic fitness level of like being able to touch and go on a short rest, and confidence of what they can do. And the pool was warm, and they're like, wow, that was amazing. They're still able to do that, and they fought through and didn't waver at all. They were holding double O's on 102, and that's what they did. But this week, it was about that. It was about holding pace and not crumbling because it just started getting fatigued. And so the ability to just sustain all the way through in the 4100s was important this week. Last week on Wednesday, it was more of a very intense, here they call it active recovery, and I just, I'm going one moderate, one fast. And it's like, well, that's active recovery. I'm like, okay, I've never used those types of terms, whatever. I said, I just want to see 15 150s as fast as they can go in that, what Banchek would call blue or purple. And they were getting one moderate, one fast. And so they were going 135s, 136s, 137s in 150 meter freestyle swims, maxing their heart rate out and working as hard as they could. So it was a different situation that we were looking at, but there was 15 fast ones and 15 moderate ones, which ended up being 3150s, which is about 4,500. And so that was it was a long set, and I think people like, why do you have to do so many? And that kind of comes back to things that I've seen in the past from other kids on the program, and how those types of sets transferred into what they've become, and how you see, let's say they're going 135s, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing 135s in their actual 1500 swims and their 800 swims, and they're being able to repeat that. And I really believe in a neurological firing system, just being able to fire it. So when they get up on the blocks, they hit the water and they're just firing right away all the way through. And it's not something strange that they get to after number 4 of the actual race, and they're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I just can't move my arms. I can't move that fast. I'm dropping off my paces. It's like they are used to just boom, 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 all the way through every single time they race those 800s and 1500s. So that's the two. And the third one is more traditional, which I blame myself for not even like realizing that the Australians were doing it all along, which is like the 3100s on 30 to 20 seconds rest. And once I finally worked my way from 2100s to 30, then I heard this podcast about how these guys were doing it 15 years ago. But I had seen my age group kids, or like junior national level kids, we were doing this set of 2100s consistently, like once a month, and these boys were averaging 56s. They were just holding 56s. And then we went to junior nationals at Texas A&M, and I had 4 boys go under 930. No, 920 was like 921. And then I had Logan Hout go under 9 minutes. He went 858. And we had kind of consistently done that set. And those were the splits that they held. The ones that they were doing on 20 seconds rest, it was like bingo. I had 3 boys, boom, 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 hitting that time all the way across the board in that 1,000. And then I saw Logan do what he did. And I'm like, you know what? That's that set we do every single time. And they exact duplicated those splits. I'm like, we're not letting go of that. And then we didn't do well in the mile or the 1500s. And I'm like, well, what if we did 30? Would that gravitate towards that one? And it did. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to make this part of the playbook, and we're going to kind of progress it through the season. And so that's what we do. We rotate those 3 ways of doing it. with the 20 seconds rest, and then you got the active rest, and then you got the short rest. And we kind of move that around in a 4-week thing. And I don't make it the same every single time. So sometimes it's going to be hundreds, sometimes it's going to be 200s, it'll be 300s. It could be, 75s, 50s, whatever. We try to get it all in that area where they see all kinds of different levels of velocities and efforts. I mean, someone like Erica, she just like, I got to make her do like 50s like that. It's a nightmare because she just doesn't have that speed to go 50s. She needs a little more time to get going. And she loves the 200s and the 300s because I could do that all day. But you make me go a higher level of velocity in hundreds and below, and it's like a nightmare for her. She gets really frustrated. But at Bella Sims, it's like, this is awesome, because she's just got the speed, and this is easy for me because I get 75s and I get 20 seconds rest. But if I get 300, it's a while till I see my 20 seconds rest. So yeah, it's a lot of fun watching them grow through it. So
I can imagine, and especially it seems like they're three pretty different athletes too, even though they do workouts together and they're doing the same kind of training, which was my next question is, obviously you have Erica in the mile, you have Katie kind of in the middle at the 8, and then Bella is swimming the 4x2 relay, so a 200 free. So why have them do the same practices when they're swimming such different events? I know you had mentioned, that's what they've been doing, so it'll be good. But what specifically moving forward, will they start to deviate a little bit from each other and start to specialize their workouts at all?
Well, it's as far as like next season, or are you talking about like in the next 2 weeks to the games?
Next 2 weeks.
Oh, the next 2 weeks. Yeah. I mean, I just contemplating as far as like what's the best avenue for especially Bella when she's got the 200. Katie and Erica are pretty close to, almost the same type of race. They got to do it twice. And then Katie's a little bit further along in the meet. So it's like, I was talking to a few of the coaches today. I'm like, Erica swims in, close, just a little bit over 2 weeks from now. And then Katie's got like 3 weeks. So she's got a little bit longer. And so I think those two can kind of go down the same path because Katie will get a little more rest as the meet goes on. And then Erica will have her rest going into that. So I think it caters to that 800 being later, that those two can kind of stay on the same path. With Bella, I'm kind of looking for those opportunities of, being with the relay people that she's going to be with, a little more speed work. She's already starting to do the relay exchanges and work on stuff like that. So we've moved her to a few other practices where she's just, focusing on that 200 free. We do a set of 3650s, and Bella did them differently than the other two girls did. They were holding race pace for the mile and their 800. And then Bella, I had her doing rounds of 4. She would go 450s, but every third of the 4, she was working on that third 50, getting, accelerating there. And she was going 30, 31 on everything but that third 50. And then she would go at like a 28 and a 29. We had Nat Barbini timing her, and I said, the goal is just to get under 30 because that's where she needs to be. She needs to be able to swim that 200 freestyle, be able to get to that 100 and be able to 30. Under stress, move on a third 50. And she's been doing 28s and 28 highs and 28 mid and then 29.5, but she just got better and better and better throughout that set. Just building her confidence and making sure that she's got that gear. She's got nothing to lose, man. She's got one race, and it's just safe relay start and just go, and have fun and enjoy the moment. And then whatever happens from there happens. If she swims fast enough to get a second swim with that on the big relay, that's a tough ask, but hell, 16 years old and she's going to be able to be part of that relay. And how exciting is that? It's just like, have fun, swim fast. It's 1-200 compared to the girl that had 11 qualified in 11 events for the Olympic trials. And now she just gets to focus on one. How beautiful is that? So
That couldn't have said it better myself. That's a great point. I totally forgot that she had qualified in so many events, and
right.
yeah, like you said, now she's just one and done. Hopefully,
Yep.
maybe two. But
Maybe. Yeah.
I love the way you crafted that. That's so cool that again they were able to do the same workout, but they each kind of had their own focus, or at least
Yeah.
she did on that one. I want to ask you a personal question about your experience there so far. Have you had interactions with different athletes or coaches that stand out to you at all, or someone you've admired for a long time that you've gotten to have a conversation with, whether that's an athlete or a coach or someone else?
I have, I knew most of them ahead of time, and we had interactions on the pool deck for the coaches, but it's now more like a personal friendship now. I kind of got into the coaching walk that's been going on like about 5 days ago. I still kind of was adjusting early on to the time change, so wasn't getting out of bed as early as these guys were, and finally started getting into the walk with Terry McKeever and Bob Bowman. Of course, Brent Ackerley, he's doing that. And Ray Lewis, I've known him for a while. And Greg Troy. And I kind of knew those guys, here and there, but it's really getting to know them so much better on the walk. And then on deck, getting to know, the coaching styles of everyone else. As far as the athletes, I really had a good time the other day. I was working with Bob and I was taking splits for Chase, and he was just knocking out of the park, and he was just right on his times. And I said, Bob, is this guy like always like the Timex clock? He's just like hitting the stroke count. He was hitting everything. It's like he's going, not always, but he's on today. And I'm like, yeah, he's within 5/100ths of a second on my watch every single time. I'm like, that doesn't happen that often where someone is just descending. He had to descend. He had to go 350s breaststroke at like one pace, and then go faster at the next for the next three, and then the last three another faster than that. So he was descending rounds of three at a time, three the same time, the next three the same, and they were just like clockwork, just boom, 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 just hit him every single time. And I'm like, I was so impressed. And I think Chase was impressed too, because he asked Keenan if I had a good watch or not. But and Keenan's like, no, that guy's pretty dogmatic. He's pretty like right on what he does. And it's like, he goes, if he says those are times you're doing, those are times you're doing. I don't know why, but yeah, it was cool to see like Chase do that, and then to watch a few of the other swimmers. I had Tori. I had Tori the other day. They were doing a butterfly set and working through one of Reagan Smith's sets as well, and that was kind of cool to watch those two swim and listen to Tori and her reactions to the workouts, and she was letting us know what she's capable of doing and swimming, and it was really cool working with them and watching them progress through their set and how they react to their times, and how they react to how they're doing. And they're all pretty much the same, and they're all down to business, which is really kind of cool. It's like, yep, getting the job done and swimming their races. But yeah, everyone is it's been a really good family here. I think everyone's getting along really well and supporting each other, and it's really cool to see. Yeah.
You mentioned it at some point, and that's the last thing I want to hit on is we hear about Team USA becoming Team USA at this training camp, specifically the Olympic training camp every cycle. You've been on junior teams before, and I'm sure there's an obvious difference in some regards, but I'm guessing you carried some tools with you from those junior trips that you've been on to this Olympic training camp. Are there specifics that come to mind that just experience you brought from being in that team environment and that training camp environment coming into Hawaii?
Yeah, I think it's the difference is understanding that everyone's got something else going on here, and the training that they all do is different. but trying to get them to come together as a group at practice as much as possible is important. But one of the things that's definitely different here is I think, as junior teams and all the other teams where you're trying to get to this moment, right? You're trying to get to the Olympic training camp and you're trying to get to the Olympic Games. This group, I think once they've gotten here, I think they all understand that they're here to achieve something and they need each other's help. I think they all understand that the stress and then the efforts to manage everything and work through it. I think that's part of the what I see is I see more of a very group that's got that family aspect. It just looks more like a family. It's like they are like so good around each other and they're willing to help each other unselfishly. It's sometimes you see it as like, oh, they're just, they're kind of selfishly getting to know you, or they're not genuine. I think everyone here, has a vulnerability. Everyone here realizes what it took to get here, and there's a relief that they're here, and it's like thankful that they're here, and they're getting along so much better than I thought they would. I mean, I don't see cliques. I don't see like, oh, this group's over here or that group's over there. And you kind of see that with the junior teams, like, oh, this like these 5 kids or these 5 people here or here, but they're all different people at the table eating together at different times. It's not the same group of people all the time. I think it's a great group. It's the greatest group I've ever seen. And maybe I'm just kind of like, just because I'm here, it's like I'm excited to be here, but I'm also observing though, and I think this group of people is really taking care of each other, and there's nobody that's selfish at all, and it's not all about them. It's that they are supportive. They ask each other, how'd your practice go? How'd you do, and how are you doing today? And it's just all good stuff. And just you couldn't ask for any nicer people. So
getting a little emotional over here. That was a beautiful description. And then
it's honestly, it's what you see. I mean, even all the coaches the same way. It's like there's so much respect for everybody here. And I guess you have to think about it, what everybody's gone through to get here, and you have to kind of give them that. It's like, what, it doesn't matter. You're here and you belong here, and we're all going to make sure that we show them we belong here. So.
Last question. We're down to about 3.5 minutes, but on that note, have you been able to process yourself as the head coach of the Sandpipers that the 3 of your athletes made the team, and then a 4th in Bowen Becker, who is an alumni of your program? Have you been able to process that just as the head coach of a club that 4 of your athletes are now Olympians for life?
I don't think so. But it's like, it's the expectation that's a direction that we were always going. So we're always going in that direction to put people on the Olympic team. Now, did I think it was going to happen with Bella and Katie right this year? It's like, not that I knew we had a chance, but I didn't want to put it in a situation where like, you should make the Olympic team. We have a chance to make an Olympic team. Erica was in that position where like, yeah, she should make the Olympic team. Like, barring anything going wrong, she should have made the Olympic team. So that kind of was an expectation, and it would have been a failure if she didn't. On my part as a coach, it's like, man, besides the uncontrollables, and there's certain things, if someone swims a lot faster than you think, and I'm like, okay, good job to you. Great job. And wow, and we didn't expect that. And that was a lot faster than we could go right now, and that's why we didn't make it. But Bella we had expectations of her just trying to get her qualified for the 200 free, because I thought that was the best window to get her on an Olympic team was through the 800 free relay, because you get those 6 spots. So that was there. And then Katie's kind of came in a little late, where she was going through her growth spurts and stuff, and we weren't sure how she was going to land her plane going into the Olympic trials and put everything together. But about 2-3 weeks before, we thought for sure she had a good chance to make the 400 AM because her breaststroke started coming around. She dropped about 4 seconds in her breaststroke that she could take off at her 4 a.m. I'm like, wow, we get 2 more out of that, shaved and tapered. She might put herself right there at the finish where everybody was, and that's, might take a 4:34 to make the team. I always took a 33, but she got too nervous and she didn't make it to the finals, and spun out her strokes, and so she kind of worked through things, and then all of a sudden we saw that mile where she brought that 400 home and like 411, or that 1500 home in a 411 in the last 400. I'm like, well, hey, it's probably going to take right around, an 820 to make the Olympic team. So didn't say it was going to be 820 to make the Olympic team. I just said, you got to put yourself in a race, and knowing in my head, it's like that race has got to get her out fast enough to bring that 411 back again and give her a chance. I said, just stay close enough to the rest of the field. And when you got 411 coming, get going. But it worked out really well for her because she was next to Allie McHugh, and Allie was the girl you could count on to just pick it up at the right time. Allie made her move a little bit earlier than normal, so she moved right after the 200, and I think that just got Katie going a little bit earlier than she normally does, and just put her in the right spot. And so it's just Allie McHugh was kind of like the one that I just told Katie. I said, Katie, she swims the race just like you should swim the race. You can learn like those cues that she has when she starts to move and starts to build her race is perfect for Katie Grimes to kind of build into it. And then that just put her on the team. And then of course, Bo, the guy's just tough as nails, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. Like, that kid, no one would recruit him out of high school. I had guys coming in looking at Bo and where they coming to look for Aaron and Logan, who were, top recruits at the time in the same class. And I said, this guy over here he looks like Lezak when he's swimming. It's just, he's skinny and he's tall and he's weak right now. He's not big and strong yet. I said, this guy gets his man size on and it gets a wedge. Like in Vegas, we didn't have blocks with wedges. So he's close to going, or at least he was going 20.50 free and like 45, 44 in his 100 frees and 139 in his 200 free. But he's just still like, he wasn't fully grown yet. And I was like, this guy's bigger than I am, and he's going to put some weight on. He's going to get big. And the only person that took a shot at that was Kelly Kramer over at Minnesota. And it worked out really well for him there. And then COVID hit and he quit. Bo was sent me an email and he's like, hey, I just, I can't do this. And I think I'm done and I don't know what to do. And I just want to let you know I quit. And I'm like, okay, just let me know if he was in Tahoe at the time. I said, let me know if you need any help, and try to get him back in the water. But he found some water. He was waiting on tables, and then the ISL called him and he said, the Australians can't come. We've got a spot open. He goes, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to use it to get myself in shape. And so he goes and does ISL, gets in shape, comes back, and it's like, I need to find a place to train. So he's like figuring out all these places to go. And he goes, I think I'm just going to go back to Minnesota. I'll work with Kelly and get me there. And him and Kelly did a great job to get him ready. And I'm so happy for Bo to be able to do what he did. It's just, and just kind of continue the Sandpipers legacy of being able to put people in position to continue to get better in the sport and still have the Olympic dream of going on to the Olympic Games or going to the Olympic trials and doing well. And that's what we try to do the most is put those kids in that position. And as far as being the head coach of this team and what we've done, all I'm trying to do is like, how do I top this? It's like, how do I make sure that this continues to happen? I think that's the same thing I said to myself though when Cody made the Olympic team in 16. It was kind of like a validation point of like, we finally got someone in the program that kind of progressed through and continued to do what he was doing. And it showed the whole rest of the team that it's possible. And because of what Cody did, I think it gave strength to Katie and Bella and Erica and Bo to not look at like, oh, well, we're not those guys. But now the team has this energy of understanding that if they do the work and if they follow the coach's instructions and listen to us, they have a really good chance of getting there. And I think that's just going to build momentum. And I think any program in the country that has had an Olympian come through their program, I think they've seen that, where it's like all of a sudden now you pick up a couple more who, the kids will listen a little bit more. They'll be like, oh, well, maybe he is right, and instead of like them thinking that everyone else outside of our program or other programs know better. It's like, we've been doing it for a while, and just, we may know, I'm not saying we know what we're doing, but we're always constantly learning. But we have a pretty good path, and we've been practicing that for a while, and I think it's working out for them pretty well. So
I don't think you can argue with 4 Olympians, but it also, just from hearing you talk, I mean, you have a plan. And like you said, it seems like you've practiced it a lot. You're always learning. You're always looking for ways to change that plan. But it's like you've really thought about this a lot, and it shows. And it's great to hear, and it's great to hear your wisdom imparted on us.
And it's not just me. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I've been working with most people on my staff have been with me for a long time. I mean, we're talking about people 10 plus years that just have never left us, and it's sitting down with coaches and talking like I'm talking with you right now. It's like, these are the things that we're really good at. And then these are the things that we're not, and we're getting beat here. Let's make sure this is part of the next thing that we're working on or adding to our toolbox. And it takes a village. If I've got to have good assistant coaches and people that believe in what I'm doing, I can't have, an assistant coach saying, oh, well, Ron's just going to kill your kid. He's going to crush you. And, you're not going to go any faster. Like, I don't coach anybody that can't do what we do. And I won't put a kid through that unless, not unless, it's like, I won't put them through that. And if they're capable of doing it, they do it. And I've changed our program. Cody Miller could never do anything over 65,000 yards a week. Anytime he got above that, he was horrible. So he never did. I was like, I went to 70 with him, and it was a bad area. And I was like, we're never doing that again. We're not making you do that again. And Ray even found that out when Ray coached. It was like, anytime he got too high with Cody, his strokes would fall apart. And so each time there's a different kid. I mean, Aaron and Logan, they could go 100K weeks, and it was easy. But Erica, anything over 75K, it's like pretty shaky area. She starts to get beat up too much, and so we come down from there. And so I think the same thing with like Katie Grimes. I kind of see her the same way. She kind of gets a little bit up in volume a little bit, and she starts having some recovery problems. And so I try not to try to push her that hard. But Bella's amazing. She could do anything I ask her to do. And I'm like, wow, this girl's like, I'm like, what event are we going to swim? It's kind of like, that's okay. So you're like walking into the next season. I'm like, okay, where you could put her almost anywhere. She's just that team player. Like, okay, well, maybe it's not the 200 free this time. Maybe it's going to be the 400 free, or it's going to be I was talking to Matt Barbini today. I said, that girl, she's going to have pretty good 200 fly too. It's just the timing of the event and when it lays out. It's like, can we get her into 200 fly where she can use her 00 and then use her 800 background and really come in or close that 200 fly like she probably can. So it's just it's the layout of the events and who's swimming them, right? It's like, okay, well, if you got 2 people already at 205, 200 fly, I'm like, well, that's kind of reach, right? So let's move over to this one and kind of put ourselves in this position. And I think you may see someone like her have several different options to pick and choose what event she might target the next time around. So, yeah.
Well, that's certainly exciting as a fan, and I'm excited to see how these sandpipers compete in a couple weeks, and certainly down the road with a lot of bright futures seemingly ahead. Ron, it was such a pleasure sitting down and talking with you, getting your perspective from Olympic training camp, from being the head coach of Sandpipers. I would love to have you back on, but thank you again for taking the time to sit down and chat today.
Hey, no worries. It was great to have you. And, I looked forward to this. I mean, we talked the other night, and I'm glad you were able to set it up, and I'm glad we were able to make it work, because I was, yeah, today was like really tight and trying to schedule something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna miss this one. I'm gonna hold this one for you.
Well, I appreciate it.
All right, no problem.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.